Hello, everyone, and welcome to Buzzing About Romance Happy Hour. I am Becky, and my co host for this evening is Heather. Hi, Heather.
Hi.
And I am so excited. This is our first time to get to chat with author Vanessa Vale. So, welcome to the podcast, Vanessa.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Um, when you replied back to my email and you were like, I have a book coming out December 27th. Can I come? And I was like, yes, yes, you can. We could not be more excited.
Well, it's a perfect time of year to talk books because right now it's outside snowing and all I want to do is snuggle in my chair with my blanket and read.
Yes, yes. And not Man Candy, that's the next book. Manhunt is the perfect book to snuggle on the couch with because it is steamy and delightful, and I'm slightly obsessed.
I'm glad that you are enjoying it. It was so much fun to write.
Well, and so let's get to know you a little bit and then we'll start talking about the book. So, like I said, tonight we're here to celebrate Vanessa Vale and her latest release, Manhunt. Heather, can you read us Vanessa's bio? She sent us a shorter, perkier bio.
I will. US Today bestseller Vanessa Vale writes tempting romance with unapologetic bad boys who don't just fall in love, they fall hard. Her books have sold over 1 million copies. She lives in the American West, where she's always finding inspiration for her next story. While she's not as skilled at social media as her kids, she loves to interact with readers.
So, rules of the night, you can ask all the questions in the chat. We'll do our best to answer them. If you're watching this on the replay, feel free to put questions in comments and we will come back and we'll answer them to the best of our ability. In the description of the video are all the links of the places to connect with Vanessa. So make sure you sign up for her newsletter, follow her on Instagram, and check out her website. If you follow, like, subscribe at the end of the night, one lucky person will win some swag from us. I've got some reader swag that I happily would love to share with somebody. So let's kick some things off in the traditional bees way. Vanessa, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm not a liquor drinker, so and we have snow coming down, so I have lemon tea. But I mentioned, I think, online to promote this that I am wearing my champagne flannel jammies.
I love
Oh,
that.
cute.
Those are phenomenal.
So I'm dressed for drinking.
You're dressed for drinking. Heather, what are you drinking tonight?
So I normally don't drink, but I am tonight. I'm having a Jameson and ginger ale
Oh, those are good. I like those.
with a lot of extra ginger ale.
And I'm having a vodka strawberry thing that came in a can because I just wasn't in the mood to make a fancy drink. I have found bourbon and hot chocolate this week.
Ooh.
Delightful. But look, forbidden fruit tastes sweeter is up my cup. And I feel like that kind of fits this book a little bit. Because, okay, I have to say, you know how to write a scene that cock blocks somebody like nobody's business. Like, I might have had a little bit of blue balls from that. I was like, what? The brothers need to go away.
Oh, right. I was trying to figure out which one you were talking about because
There were a couple.
there were some pauses in the book. I don't want to give anything away, but
No, we won't give
yes.
anything away, but that scene, I'm like,
Yeah, he does have a few brothers that got in the way.
Mhm.
but they're delightful brothers, so I'm super excited that they were there. But let's get to know you a little bit, Vanessa. So why romance? Why write romance?
Um, Actually, I went to art school and have a degree in graphic design, so I never imagined I would write anything. I don't think any of my high school teachers imagined that either. I started on a dare about 20 years ago. I love to read romance, but I never imagined writing it. Then someone at my work was like, "How hard could it be to write romance?" And I was like, "Yeah, how hard could it be?" And then, of course, I don't really do anything half baked, and so I just ran with it. But this was, like I said, 20 years ago. No, it was more than that now. And it was back in the day when you had to query Harlequin pretty much to get published. And so nothing really came of it other than joining critique groups through the Colorado Romance Writers Group. So I met a lot of great new to me friends. And then we all disbanded for a number of years, and I moved to Montana for a while and then returned back to Colorado. And then things changed in the industry. And I had a really great story idea from living in Montana. So actually, my first romance book was what's now called Montana Fire. So my small town Montana series, the first book, Montana Fire, was the first one I wrote, and it was based ridiculously loosely on my time in Montana.
I love that. It's so interesting. I think I knew that you lived in Colorado because author Krista Sandor is one of our friends of the podcast. And she mentioned, she's like, no, she lives near me. And I was like, okay, Krista. Krista thinks everybody lives near her. Like, I'm in Ohio. She's like, that's near me. I'm like, Krista, it's not near you.
Yeah,
but
in the out in the West, 400 miles is nearby.
I just have you in Montana because these stories were in Montana. And I'm obsessed.
You love Montana, because I would say a good chunk of your books are Montana.
Almost all of them actually take place in Montana. I did live there for a number of years, and I do love it up there. I do miss it, and it's a great state to write about. I think it's just I don't what everyone puts in their books. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Cold.
It's cold.
A lot of snuggling.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have a favorite trope that you like to read or to write? Doesn't matter, either way. But do you have a favorite trope you like?
To read, trope or category?
Trope. So like
trope.
Siblings,
Okay.
Best friend, age gap, forbidden.
Yeah. I mix it up a fair amount. Lately, I've been enjoying age gap, and I'm enjoying hockey. I'm not sure if that's really a trope, but that's under sports. So I'm going to say it's a trope.
It's a trope.
And I have one I just lost. Oh, I didn't know this about myself, but I really like praise kink.
Yeah.
I feel like you just spoke our love language.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
These are all the things. I'm like, check. I thought you were going to say, like, I really like kidnapping. And I'm like, yeah, me too.
You're like, oh. No, I would like, I like to write a little bit more neutral ones, because up until recently, I've been doing cowboy romance, and I've been sticking specifically to that. And I think people know me as a cowboy romance author. I wanted to switch it up a little bit. And I think with Manhunt, I've hopefully done that, where it's not as much cowboy, because there's no cowboys in Manhunt at all. It's about small town romance, really. And so I'm trying to aim for that. And so on top of that small town romance, I'm like sprinkling different things in. So Manhunt has billionaire, boss assistant, age gap. I don't think 16 Candles remake is a trope, but I don't know who doesn't love 16 Candles. So
I read this, and they were talking 16 Candles, and I was like, I am here for it. I think Jake Ryan was my first, like, crush, and I'm a kid of the 80s, like, it was like, this was my love language. This book, Manhunt, is my love language.
Oh, I'm so glad you liked it so much. And so those are all the little sort of tropey things that I like. I will let people who are watching this know that book 2 has Dex, the hockey brother. So that's where I'm throwing in the hockey thing. And I will say Mr. Vale is a hockey player. And so I finally get to throw that into a book.
Awesome.
Well, and the Avalanche, I'm in Minnesota. Hockey is my world. And so you have the Avalanche, and they just won the cup, which was a huge thing for you guys.
Yeah. My husband had a girlfriend last spring called Hockey and the Avalanche. So I came in second.
I can understand as a hockey fan.
I don't mind watching them either. They aren't disappointing on the eyes.
Kale Maker is very adorable. Very adorable.
Is that one of the players, Heather? I read hockey romance like a boss. But I am not, we are not a sports family. My dad was a sports guy, but my husband is not a sports guy. And so we don't really do sports. I'm always like, go sports. But I read all the hockey romances, like I know them all. So Heather, however, hockey is her identity. She's Minnesota Hockey Mom Reads on Instagram. Heather is all about the hockey. So she'll say stuff to us like, oh, look at this, and say like the name of a player. And I'll be like, who's the cutie? Because I got no idea who he is.
Well, hopefully, Heather, book 2 will do it for you. We'll see.
I want
no pressure, right?
Yeah, no pressure. But so is book 2 going to have another 80s movie, or was this just kind of a quirky thing you did, or are you going to try and follow that through the theme?
I'm hoping for this book to get very, very large. I'm dropping lots of little side characters into each book so that I can hopefully have readers fall in love with them and then give them their own books. I know that I've gotten some feedback about Mallory, who is the heroine in Manhunt's best friend, and her getting her own book. So of course, I'm hoping to sprinkle these people in throughout the different books so that I can keep on going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so.
This is Hunter Valley is very, I love how you kind of set it up. It's like a place where I feel like people want to go and like stay.
Right. You want to go there on vacation. If you're not big on, say, true rural small town life, you want to go there for a vacation and then go home, or you want to move there, or you want to go ski there, or you want to go mountain climbing. Pretty much, you just want to go to Montana.
Yeah.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And this book has such a great meet cute, and I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but within the meet cute, Maverick gets a t-shirt, and I absolutely adore the name of the coffee shop. And so if you end up making a merch store and having a t-shirt, could you let us know? Because I need a bright pink earlier,
t-shirt. And that was a great idea. There's a book signing here in Denver at the end of March. It's Readers Take Denver. It's the only one that I believe I'm doing this year, and since it's in the local area, I'm going to go, and so I think I might need to have to get a t-shirt for it.
Yeah, one of our community members, Amanda, is going to be at Readers Take Denver, and so she's like writing down all the authors that she needs to read, and we were like, make sure you add Vanessa Vale because she writes, sexy cowboys.
Amanda, I will give you a list of all of Vanessa's books that I think you have to read.
Yes, Amanda's like, I'll be there. We know you'll be there. So the town of Hunter Valley, is this just loosely based on like a town you knew in Montana, or was this, are you really rebuilding the town you lived in when you were there?
Yes and no, I guess. I kind of wanted to give it as many possible options for future books as possible. So Montana's enormous, and there's parts of Montana that are flat prairies, and then there's parts with prairies and mountains, and there's just some parts with mountains, and winter and summer are completely different there. So I wanted to make sure it had a mixture of everything: small town life with summer weather. I hope to do some books in the dead of winter. It has a ski resort nearby. So I just try to put in as many options as possible for great, fun book ideas.
Well, I'm in. So this book has an amazing meet cute, and I've read a couple of your other books, and you have a series that's releasing right now that you wrote with Helen Hart, and those are a little more emotional and darker, but they're phenomenal. They are phenomenal, and everybody should be picking them up and reading them. But this book had one of the best meet cutes. Like, it was perfect. Just the way he's like trying to listen in, and then he bumps her, and anyway.
What I love about Maverick and Bridget is so smart. Like, from the get-go, we see how intelligent she is, and that is one of Maverick's favorite things about her, is how smart she is. And when he says, I want to see how your brain works, I'm like, oh my God, I just love you.
Right. The first thing that he technically meets about her is her voice. He listens and overhears her talking about a math problem, pretty much. And so he's intrigued by that alone to begin with, and then he's drawn into her from there. So while we all when the romance industry objectify men by putting them on our covers and do all this great stuff that we've just been talking about, how hot and amazing hockey players are. It's nice and refreshing to have a hero be drawn into a woman and be curious about her because of what comes out of her mouth and how smart she is. And also, I'm not that good at math, so it would, I'm fascinated by people who can have a brain that works like that.
Right, me too.
She was really smart, but I find that in I've only read, I think now I'm up to 5 books. I've had some time. It's been bitter cold here in Ohio. You really like smart heroines, though. Because I've read, so East, she's really smart. You really like smart heroines. Is that something you strive to do when you go to create these characters?
I don't think I do it intentionally, like these people must be smart. I wanted this heroine to be sort of nerdy and STEM driven, and just making her be like pretty much like a genius kind of scenario where it makes her kind of stumble. It kind of gets in her way a little bit. But I think as a reader, I don't really enjoy heroines who are doormats. And I don't mean to offend anybody who does enjoy that. It's just not my thing. And so I also think that when I write, I try to write my heroines based off of women that I know or I want to read the books, and everyone is super smart in their own special way. So Bridget, for example, is really, really, really good at math, but she's not great in social skills. She's not great with men. She's this and that. And so I think everyone's smart in their own special way. And then they're just like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that with something else entirely. And I think readers can feel closer to a heroine because of that. Like, I don't do math well, but I can understand how she can fumble in front of a guy or with a coffee in her hand or in work situations. So
Sure.
I try to hope that readers can really dig in with these heroines.
Yeah, I struggle when a heroine, I like to say, is too stupid to live. It often ends up putting me grumpy, and a lot of times it leads to me just saying, nope, not for me. Because I want a heroine that is smart and driven. I also liked in this book that he falls first. I mean, he's attracted. He kind of has some tunnel vision, and he's like, I see her, I want her, that's it. And I loved that. I loved that.
Yeah, the timeline for this story is very, very short. And so it's more almost a happy for now than happily ever after because it's so short. It could be either, because we want them to be happily ever after. I'm not saying there's not any kind of that situation at all. There is. But I think that because it's such a swift timeline, that a lot of their story is going to play out into future books, because they will be sub-characters in the future stories, and their relationship will continue to move on because it's such a swift time frame.
Well, it is incredibly well written, because I believe they're happily forever after.
Well, I mean, they are, of course,
yes.
duh. But
I felt their connection. I felt their attraction, and it really helped that Maverick, he was dynamic. And I think that I have seen that in a lot of your books that I've read. You write these really dynamic couples that are strong in their own ways, and they just together build each other up bigger and better. Now, I did have a moment there, and I'm not going to spoil this, guys, where Maverick and we were going to have a talk there for a minute. And so don't get frustrated, people. He just doesn't communicate well for like a little portion of the book. But he's trying to help a friend. But he and I were going to have a long talk. I'm like, don't be stupid. The whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, please don't be stupid. Please don't be stupid.
He's a man, and it's only been a short relationship, so he definitely goofed, but I think is redeemable. Just like the heroines who are really smart and they fumble, I think the guys are the same way. He fell into this relationship that really surprised him, and the things that he had to resolve outside of that, again, like you, I'm not giving it away, he pushed off to the side because he was just so enthralled with what he fell into. And then, yeah. So I can't say anything either, and I'm trying not to because I'll stick my foot in my mouth and everyone will hate
Right.
me because
I don't want to ruin this because I really
He
want
like
everyone to go
figures
get this
out
book.
he wasn't very bright. Okay, so Patricia asked a great question, and it's one that I had. So she said she's read a couple of your Menage series. So I'm thinking it's like the Bridgewater series, where it's two husbands and a wife. How did you get interested in writing those? Because they're great.
thank you. So a number of my series have male, female, male pairings. So it's not just male, female, male, female, male, just to confirm the females in the middle. There's no crossing of swords of the heroes. So there's two guys for one lady. So just to give everyone a update on that. I have a number of series with those in them. I started with the Bridgewater series actually way back in the day. They were my original series that I pretty much worked on. And back then, this is way back in 2015, way back, there was not a lot of steamy cowboy books, steamy historical specifically. There were a lot of sweet or pearl clutching Harlequin type books, but not a lot of really steamy ones. And there really weren't any Menage ones at all. And so in order to push the envelope with steamy, I went to having two cowboys in one book instead of just one. I think, again, to the point where I want to help the readers who are picking up these books fall into a fantasy, because you want to get in bed or in your favorite chair and snuggle down and read and just fall into the story. Don't we want two guys to satisfy us in every way? I mean, they're not making us do the housework. They're not making us clean dishes. None of that is mentioned in these stories at all. Even in 1885, they are all about her, all. And so if that's the case, I'll take two. And so that's what happened, is that I tried to fill a niche that was missing for very steamy historical ones. And then I moved from the Bridgewater historical to Bridgewater County, which was the contemporary version of it. And since it came from the same town, I think kind of like Yellowstone now, I haven't seen the show, but with Yellowstone, they had the historical, they did the modern one, they went back to historical in reverse. I had the historical and I made the modern version based off of the town that grew out of the original settlers. So
yeah,
it's I love the world that you created, and then like the history. I mean, it's like very well thought out. You thought about the history and the whys, and it's like,
well, it's completely ridiculous. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. And the good news is that back in 1885, the ridiculousness was easier to pull off. So, I mean, you can have a bunch of military men from England who went to some imaginary Middle Eastern country and picked up their polyamorous ways and then decided to move to the Wild West. I mean, you can't really do that now. So 1885, it really worked. And then because they did that and founded it on that principle back in 1885, the modern day version makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's our escape from laundry and dishes
and one husband or a significant other or whomever. Right.
I often have moments when I'm reading like a Menage and there's two husbands, I think, oh, I don't know. One sometimes is too many.
Right. We don't need to keep them. We just want to read about them and have them be as talented in exactly what mind reading, shall we just say mind reading, as they are. And then we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Correct. So, and I will say you write some pretty grouchy cowboys. So if you're watching this and you are a fan of Yellowstone, I think that your characters in your world fit right. It's not as bonkers as Yellowstone. Yellowstone is bonkers. I watch that show and I go, oh, why are we watching this still? Also, if you like bonkers, you should watch White Lotus, because that is equally as bonkers.
So I have not seen Yellowstone, I think intentionally because I do write things set in Montana. However, based off of my vague views of little clips that come across my Facebook feed, and especially now that I just said this into my computer, I think that probably my Billionaire Ranch series is more that. This a little bit, I can't say darker, and not remotely dark, but there's a little bit more intense backstory to it.
Angst.
And so the characters are a little bit edgier and grumpier and have reason for it. So
yeah. That's the series that I've got book 4 still to get to. So I've read the first.
He's book 4 is West, and he is the grumpy billionaire cowboy.
Oh, I love a grump. I love a grump.
Mhm.
And I was worried a little bit. Maverick was going to come in and be grumpy, but he was not. He was not like he gets coffee spilled on him and puts that pink shirt on and he doesn't take it off for like 2 days. And I was like, oh, I love him. I love
I think
him.
in my mind, he's somewhat like confident and old enough where he's like, yeah, whatever. I'm fine with wearing this pink shirt. Think what you will, I don't care.
Yeah.
But not in a cocky sort of way, just sort of like, whatever.
And he adopts a dog, and I always love a floof in a romance story. And I have Aussies. And so when you were explaining that it was this corgi mix, I'm like, oh, yeah, I love that.
Yeah. There's a dog. Actually, there's a dog in my neighborhood that is walked, and I borrowed that dog. It is a Australian shepherd, right? The dogs that herd the sheep,
Yeah.
right? Black and white, but it has little corgi legs. It was like they took the legs off this Australian sheep herding dog and stuck these little corgi legs on. So it is the funniest looking dog, but it is the coolest looking thing ever. And I love a good mutt. I mean, who doesn't love a mutt? So I thought it was really important that we added a dog in. And usually I think a good small town romance includes at least one pet and an older person. I don't want to say an elderly person, but some older, quirky character that helps matchmake and meddler. I haven't put that person in yet, but he or she will soon arrive.
I love a meddler, and the more like outrageous she is, as far as like, quirks or flirts with the men, that kind of stuff, I just think.
If you love a meddler, then you should read the small town romance books with Montana Fire.
Okay.
I will catch up with you after this about that one, because the side character, she really runs the show, and she's an adult store owner, and she's a meddler and extraordinaire.
I love this. I'm in. Honestly,
I just wrote it down.
I did too.
Fire.
I do too. I always come to our lives and I think, okay, like I've done my research. I read a few of the author's books. I'm current. And then they're like, no, if you liked this, you should read this book. And then I always end up going away with like 6 more books on my TBR, which I am not sad about.
That is a good question. You have a lot of books, Vanessa. Where do you think, or tell us like where to start, or
like currently, I honestly, so I will say this. I think if you have not read anything Vanessa Vale and you want to start, read Manhunt. Read Manhunt. It is quick, it is spicy, it is sexy. And then, but where would you have someone go from there then? Because we got to wait till March, which we're a little salty about, but we'll wait.
I have to write the book.
I know, but we're still, we're salty.
We will be on you. Don't worry.
No pressure or anything. So if you want a Vanessa Vale 101, if you are guiding people in through Manhunt, then I would move on to Billionaire Ranch next, which sort of segues into backward. I'm not making you go backward, but that segues into more of a cowboy theme, because I am cowboy. So half the guy, the first guy, he's a cowboy, but he left to go work for the FBI. The second guy, he's an artist, but he lives in Montana and he's a cowboy. The third guy is actually a professor at university, so it's teacher student. And then the last one, he truly is a rancher and he's a grumpy cowboy. So that one's got a mix. If you're looking for romantic comedy, the Montana Fire one, that was the first book I wrote. So it is definitely different because it was the first one I wrote, and it's written, I think, actually, if I remember correctly, in third person instead of all the other ones. No, that's not true. That's not true. It's only in the heroine's point of view. That's the difference. It's only in her POV. There's no hero POV at all. But I kind of like that sometimes in my books, because you have to wonder what the guy's thinking. And so when I wrote it, the hero is always kind of mysterious. Don't you like reading sometimes one POV only?
I do. I don't mind it.
I don't mind it either sometimes because Penny Reed does a really great job with that because the heroines, the guys are mysterious a little bit, and she does such a beautiful job with descriptions of their actions and motions and facial gestures and everything they do. So you get a feel for their mood based off of those alone. And I don't know, I want one. I want one of the bearded guys.
I would agree.
Yeah.
So Montana Fire, Billionaire Ranch, and then I know it's a so you have the new series of Helen Hart, which is great, and those are brothers. If you're into romantic suspense, I would say your Alpha Mountain series.
Thank you.
I love
all of my books are standalone in a series. Well, all of my books in a series are standalone characters from book to book to book. The only series that has a cliffhanger in it truly is the books with Helen. So while they do have 3 different sets of couples in each book, you don't know what happens until the very end.
Well, and
so you have to read all 3.
I've read Helen previous, and she likes a cliffhanger. She likes 3 books to tell a story. So I was prepared. I won't say I wasn't slightly ragey at the end of them because, I was a little bit. But
right. So the Vanessa Vale readers of half of that duo may have been like, oh, because there were cliffhangers in those. But yeah. I don't usually write cliffhangers. To be perfectly honest, I can't think that with that much plot across all of these books. And so I like to wrap up mostly what happens from book to book. So in the On a Manhunt series, Bridget and Maverick get their happily ever after. I'm not spoiling anything because these are romances, and of course they do. But you will see them in future books, and you'll get a little bit of them going forward. But their love story is done, and so you don't have to worry about waiting.
No. I will say the way that you tease book 2 with Dex's epilogue at the end of book 1. I mean, I was in love with this book after I read it. I had some questions about the sister, Bridget's sister, because she's harsh. She's a little harsh.
But she comes across that way in book 1, but there's a reason for it. And it's not like it's a scary reason or anything like that, but there's a reason for it. And I think that, or I hope, I haven't really gotten very far in the story, but I hope that we can empathize with her and how she reacts to things, where Bridget is more fumbling along and just because she's younger, she just sort of falls into life. And Lindy, who's the older sister, she's much older. And so she has had to structure her life quite a bit, and that shows.
Well, and you have to give her grace because, and this isn't spoilery or anything, but Bridget and Lindy's mom and dad have passed, and Lindy is her caregiver and raised her as a young child. So you can't, I don't fault her, but she is prickly, which is okay because her hero is like his own little ray of sunshine.
Right. Well, I think I'm going to have to send this book to you two when I finish it, before I send it to the editor, to make sure that I got it the way you want, because I'm feeling a lot of pressure.
Oh, don't feel pressure. We will be happy with whatever. We're always happy.
Like a puppy,
he has golden retriever vibes.
Yeah.
I actually just wrote something about that today, where I put in that she thought he was like a puppy, but then she's like a Rottweiler puppy.
Wow.
Because he's not like a golden retriever puppy. I think Maverick is somewhat of a golden retriever, in that he's not, I mean, he's a formidable force, especially if someone messes with Bridget, but he's much more laid back and relaxed. And while Dex comes across as pretty chill, I think that since he's a hockey player, especially, I think we're well aware that they pull out all the stops when they have to.
Yeah.
So Patricia's asking, when you're writing a book, do the characters talk to you? Do you hear them in your head? I know that sounds bonkers. Some authors hear them, others don't. Do you have voices?
I don't hear the characters as much as what I need to do with the story. And where I hear them is in the shower.
I have in the shower, so many shower ideas.
Right. And the problem is that I don't remember if I put shampoo in my hair. And so then I shampoo usually twice. And the only way you can tell, when you do your shampoo again, your hair it lathers up super fast. And you're like, oh, okay, I already did this. So I find that in the shower, all of a sudden I'm just like this, staring around, and I think of something and I have to come up with it. So the characters don't specifically speak to me, but they kind of tell me where they want to go next or what I need to do with them next.
Yeah. Leah's in the chat making fun of me because I get shower ideas and then I'll say, hey Siri, text Leah. And then I'll like verbally vomit my shower idea, like voice to text to Leah. And I always get like, huh? And I have to be like, shower idea.
Yeah. Well, so I'm looking to the side because I have this little notebook. I'm sitting on the floor and next to my sort of like reading working chair, and it's just got like notes in it. It's just like a flip notebook, and it has ideas that I wrote down, and a lot of them are like when you're laying in bed and you're reading a book and you're like, ooh, that praise kink is really good. I think I need to add that. Or like, oh, a sailboat in the storm, whatever I'm thinking of. I write it down, and sometimes I look at it and I am like, what does that mean? And then I don't even know if you can read my handwriting, but it's like, I can't even read what I wrote. So sometimes I have a really great idea and it's just long gone. But sometimes my husband, I'll be sitting somewhere and I'll be like, excuse me. And I get up and I walk away because I have an idea. I'm like, this is what I have to do. And I have to go and do it immediately because I know for a fact, absolutely for a fact, I will not remember it at all.
That's why I randomly text Leah, and then the idea is there in text, and she'll be like...
But then the text, sometimes you're like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, we've had those.
Yeah.
How long about does it take you to write a book?
In the good old days, it was like 3 weeks. I was full of ideas, young and brimming with possibilities. And then now it depends. I found with Manhunt, I wrote it in, I think it was September and October, and the weather was nice here, right? So I was sitting out back on our deck, just sitting outside on the, with the table out there, and when you sit on the patio, because it's just lovely. And so I would sit down and sit out there and write some, and then I'd walk away and I'd sit down and write some and walk away, and all of a sudden the book was written. So I was just pacing it out nice and slow. I'll say if I put my butt in my chair, about a month. In this year I wrote 8 books. In the past I've written so 2022 I wrote 8 books. In 2021, which is still barely last year, I wrote 9, and then I think previously before that I usually wrote 10 a month. But I'm trimming them back a little bit. I have been slowly backing up a little, and that's been really delightful.
No, I agree, because we've been talking about this a little bit too, some reader burnout, a little bit of pod fade. Sometimes as a reader, it can be overwhelming when your favorite author feels like they're releasing a book every 5 weeks and you're trying to keep up. And then I want to read those books, but I also am sometimes delighted when, like with you, I fell down this little rabbit hole of going and reading this Billionaire Ranch series. And I had the time to do that because I wasn't... Right. December's a slow month and I didn't have any of my work this month.
Right. Well, and I think that I'm going to just say, now that we're coming out of COVID, I mean, we're not really coming out of COVID, but you get the gist of everyone's going outside again. And I think I really enjoyed that this year because when the weather was nice, I was out. And we traveled a little bit more. This year coming up in 2023, my husband and I are going to be empty nesters. We're shipping second Vale child off to college. And so, the dynamic of my life is going to change quite a bit. And we're hoping for a lot more traveling and just not being at home quite as much. And so adjusting my schedule now for that, hopefully will give me a little bit of mental cushion for you to not ask me when Man Cave is coming out or Man Made or whatever.
No, I feel that because I have a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old, and next fall they will both, be on campus and living their lives and doing all the things. And it's like, I have a list. And my husband's like,
Right.
are we ever going to be home? And I'm like, no, because when they're home, I mean, my husband works at the local university where we're making our children go because, well, free tuition. Um, but I'm like, they can be home with the dogs, but you and I don't have to be home. And
Right.
I'm lucky. I work as a copy editor, so for and developmental edits, my job, I can take it anywhere. So let's go. I want to go
Right. And all of
places.
a sudden, even though older kids like yours and mine, yours are very close in age to mine, they don't really need our presence much. When they're literally not in the same state, all of a sudden, you're just like looking around, you're like, well, what's going on in my life and what am I going to do? And now I have to revisit my husband and get to know each other all over again. So,
Yeah. Well, and
so
for
yeah,
3 years, we've been in kind of this bubble and, not a ton outside. And it's not over, but I'm ready
it's
to
time.
experience some life again.
Yeah.
So
The questions are rolling in.
Oh, great.
Okay, so one is, do you enjoy co-writing? And then what inspires you when you're co-writing?
The difference I find between co-writing and doing it yourself is that you have someone to bounce ideas off of. You also are accountable to somebody else. So I know when I'm writing something, I got to get it done because I got to kick it back over to them to move forward. It's not as lonely. The challenge with co-writing is sometimes the ideas don't come, or you have an idea of your own and you just want to figure it out yourself and you just want to make the characters yours. It goes both ways. I do enjoy it very much. Yes.
Because you co-write with a couple different people. So like Helen Hart and then Renee Rose. Is there anyone else? Or is it just
Right. So as you two, especially, you seem to be experts on me, which is very weird.
Sorry.
sorry.
I have written 3 series with Renee Rose. She's lovely and I enjoy working with her and she's a close friend of mine. Helen Hart is local here as well. And since she writes Small Town and I write Small Town Cowboys, we decided to just do a series together, which has been a lot of fun. The last book comes out in a couple of weeks and later in January. And so that will be the end of our co-writing partnership, but it was a fun, I can't say a one-off, but a trio together. So that was great. I also used to co-write Grace Goodwin with my best friend. That's a sci-fi romance author pen name. And so I did 6 years of co-writing under that one name of Grace Goodwin, but I retired from that pen name. So she solely has that awesome skill of tackling Grace Goodwin solo. So I did do 6 years of a sci-fi romance pen name as well. So I do have a lot of experience with it. It's great. And yeah.
Very fun. So
I hope
Leah,
I've answered the person's question.
yeah, no, it did. We'd research too, so it's not like
Right.
we're total
So
stalker level.
we like to say that the podcast gives us license to stalk the authors so that we come to these conversations prepared to talk. And so
just come on over.
We read the books and
Right.
but sometimes we do come off a little bit like rabid
Stalker.
fans and creepy.
Okay. Leah wants to know if we're getting more Alpha Mountain men.
Maybe if I don't know, we left it open-ended because there's a lot of teammates of Ford, Kennedy, and I'm having a moment. The other guy that Taft needs a guy, and I know you guys are all screaming the name of the person, the hero and rebel, and I apologize, I'm having a moment. Hayes, there we go. They have a lot of teammates who need books, so we've left it open-ended for that possibility. And the thing is, the series that's most well received that we've written was Wolf Ranch.
Yes.
People are very, very satisfied in many ways by that series. And so if anything, we might go back to that one because those are the ones that's the one we get the most emails about.
Okay.
Yep.
And then Patricia asked another question and she said, do you ever suffer? Well, I hate to even bring it up because I don't want to make it happen. So what happens if you're struggling to write a book? Is there something that you do? Do you walk away from it? Do you start something else?
I don't start well, it depends. I don't start anything else. I walk away. I literally, shower time. I literally it just sits in the back and I think about it. So with Manhunt specifically, I knew I wanted to do a book where and this is not giving anything away because all of the blurb and all of the teasers you see all over the place mention it, where the heroine sends accidentally the hero her answers to a sex quiz. And if you've seen 16 Candles, that is the basic premise or the start of that movie. So I wanted to start with that. And so then the rest of the story was, had to sort of morph from itself. And then I was really struggling with what the Black moment was. And I just let it ride for a while, and I finally came up with it. So to answer your question, I let it ride, but I also asked my friends. So I'm like, I'm totally stuck. I need help figuring out what happens here. And usually, you know how you don't like to clean your own house, but you'll go to your friend's house and have no problem cleaning their own house, their house. It's kind of like, I have no problem helping other people with their plots, because it's like, gosh, how can you come up with that easy idea? Well, I can't come up with my own. So sometimes you go to your friends and they come up with great fixes to bridge something that you just can't get to right.
No, I love that. I mean, because it's good to have. I mean, honestly, I'm lucky because I call Leah at least once a day and we bounce ideas off for the podcast, or I'm struggling with an edit and I'll be like, well, how would you suggest? Like, here's the small piece of this book that I'm struggling with and I don't know how to tell the author. This is some ideas to fix this. This isn't, you don't want this here or whatever. And I can talk to Leah about that. And it helps because I can talk to my husband, but he just looks at me like,
yeah.
And my daughter, who's 17, she'll be like, Mom, nothing behind the eyes. Can you see the look? There ain't nothing here. And I'm like, got it, sister. Thanks.
And then Leah could come up with something immediately like that. That's like, of course, that's exactly what it needed to be.
Right. I think that's great that you have this community of writers too, that you can work with and bounce ideas off and talk.
Writers are really great that way.
I just, yeah. This world is really great. I mean, of course, there's always going to be drama and sometimes people put petty pants on. But really, I love the romance book world. It fills my cup.
We're a great group.
You have boys, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they help you with like TikToks and social media, or no? Because mine will not help me.
No, they do neither that I know of. Neither do TikTok at all. I think my older one, they both have Instagram accounts, but they literally just post random pictures of like travel or something, like a sea turtle or weird stuff like that. They aren't really into social media at all, but they are adept at it in a way that I never could be, because their brain was raised on this kind of
they're technology natives.
And this kind of platform of like pushing information through algorithms. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Leah or Heather, I pay my girl child to make my social media for me. Like, she makes my TikToks, and granted, I feed her, I clothe her, but I just buy her Starbucks and she has to.
My 16-year-old thinks it's really weird and has no interest in helping me. So
I would, if I asked, they'd probably say yes, but I don't get them involved in my business stuff, especially things like this, because it's just not their thing. And they would never understand the nuances behind how to talk about posting a TikTok that has spicy times in it as a lure. I mean, not that I don't think they should read that, not that I really want them to, but the way we as a romance community want that kind of content as a, I want to put it out there, but the readers also want to absorb that kind of information. And it's just this thing that you understand if you're in this little huge community that we have. But if you're outside of it, like my children or your children or even our spouses, they're like, they don't get it at all.
Yes, my husband and son do not understand Bookstagram. And my 16-year-old said, only you would have a hobby that has deadlines where you have to like have books read. He goes, who gives themselves deadlines on a hobby? And I'm like, I guess me, I don't know.
Right. So it's kind of quirky in that sense, but to answer your question, they are adept at social media. Maybe my bio is a little skewed, but
that's fine.
No, yeah. If I think what it is that they would do it anyway because they're brought up to do it. If I retired, I would not be sad to see Instagram, most of Facebook, and all of TikTok just disappear.
Yes, same.
Same.
We actually have that conversation quite often, and it's been nice. I haven't had to work. Month of December, I didn't end up having a ton of work other than podcast stuff, and it was really nice. I let my Instagram go for the month. I scheduled graphics for podcast stuff, but I did not kill myself for things this month, and wasn't engaging and fighting, and I had a little bit of happiness. But you're right, yeah, like we talk about that often, about like your hobby becomes your personality. So for me now, like we'll have a conversation and somebody will be talking about something here and I'll be like, I have no clue what's going on in town, but let me tell you what's happening in the book world. I can give you all the gossip. And they're like, but
We don't
town.
care.
I was like, oh, you didn't want to know that this author was behaving badly or this person did this? And they're like,
Right.
no.
Well, and for me, Vanessa Vale is obviously a pen name. I'm not really Vanessa Vale. I don't have two cowboys in my bed. I don't, I don't do all of the spicy things that are listed in my books.
Right.
I am actually very unexciting. Not that my social media makes me look that way, but it's a brand, and so I try to present it as that. And so, I mean, obviously, you're talking to me as a person, but it's about a book that I crafted that hopefully makes people have enjoyment for a few hours to read it.
Yeah.
And so, there's a fine line between being yourself and
Yes.
No, I agree. And that's just like Manhunt was so well done. It was such a great escape. And I think that's why it's easy for me as a reader to be a little obsessed in it and want to go to Hunter Valley and
Right, that's me too. I love like I mentioned Penny Reed because she's great, but her books are great. I really want to go to her little town in Tennessee and find my own bearded dude because they're
right.
spectacular.
I mean,
But
I need a
don't know.
Viking. I want a Viking.
Right. I'm not really into moving back to 1885 Montana, but for 2 hours in the book, I'm game. I mean, I think I'd like more baths than that.
Well,
Yes, there's nobody's laundry you have to do. You're not cooking dinner for people.
Nobody
it's
asked
not
me
all
what
that.
was for dinner in that book. That book wins simply because it wasn't a teenage child standing in front of me going, it's like 4:00. What are we having for dinner tonight? I don't flipping know. I got 2
But
more
I
hours.
think about that as a mom and as a spouse and everything else. I'm like, I don't want any of that in my book. I think that's the reason why no one talks about periods in books is because we don't really want them that much. And so they're in there. That's great. But I think people like steer clear of that and like poop or whatever, because they really just don't need that in their books. It's just like, I don't want to hear about that stuff. Like dishes. No
And
dishes.
the hero always makes sure like food is taken care of. Like I've noticed that in a lot of romance books. Like the hero will cook and takes care of the
where
heroine.
he orders and picks the food up and
I got takeout. Here it is.
But doesn't say to her, where do you want me to get dinner from? Like I didn't have to call the order in that book.
He actually, in this book, Manhunt, he said, I didn't know what she wanted, so I ordered a whole bunch of different things. She didn't even have to make a decision. That's the best part.
Right. I think that is the crux of every woman out there. Sometimes you just don't want to make a dang decision.
No.
Yes. Totally.
Nope.
Done. The end. That's the entire book right there. We don't want to make a decision.
It's incredibly sexy too that we didn't have to make a decision. But honestly, though, when he orders all that food and then all the brothers show up and start eating it, I was like, okay.
Well, I have 2 boys, so of course they're going to eat it. They see like a plethora of food. It's like, done.
Dex just started like helping himself. He's like handing out the forks, and it's like, he just made himself at home.
Boys would not, they would just start eating and then ask questions later. They'd be like, oh, you mean this isn't for us?
Oh, whoops. Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry.
It was in the fridge.
So Patricia asked, when she reads a book and she really likes it, she gets emotionally attached to the characters. So
Mm.
are there any of your characters that are you emotionally attached to them when you're writing, then you shut the book and move on? Or is there a character that lives rent free still in your head that sometimes you have to be like, okay, I wrote your story, go away for a while?
Right. I think that it kind of that the question goes in parallel with who's my favorite hero.
Right.
Mhm.
So I'm going to combine them into one and say that Gray or Grayson Green in Strong and Steady is my favorite hero, hands down. That book was actually first written as as a true MMA mixed martial arts book based in Baltimore. So an urban MMA book, which goes nothing to do with cowboys whatsoever. I love that book, love it. It just had to be written. I love the book, and it was well received, but not that well received. And then I realized that it didn't fit my brand, and so I had to make some tweaks to it. So he's pseudo a cowboy. His MMA name or whatever is the cowboy, and so or no, the outlaw. I'm having a moment again. I can't remember. I've got 80 books clogged in my head, but um the outlaw. I think it's the outlaw. Anyway, so I gave him a little bit of a cowboyish theme and then moved them to Colorado. So it's really the same book with just a little bit of tweaks. Anyway, he is my favorite hero of all, and it's not. I would say it's kind of a slow burn. It's kind of different than my other ones because of that. So if you're looking a little bit for a little bit more mainstream romance, that would be it. It has one book that follows it, which the hero is Grayson Green from the first books. Um, he's the trainer of the guy in the second book who is a fighter. I love that guy. I want him. I want him so bad.
So that was Strong and Steady. Amanda just added it to her Goodreads.
Oh, good. Let me know. It's longer. It's a little bit longer story. It's not like in your face up front, spicy times like most of my books are. So you get there, the characters are a little older. So it's got, just got a different feel.
Yeah. I love it. That sounds...
Patricia, I hope that answered your question.
That's fantastic. Okay, if you guys are still here hanging out with us, give us a hey in the comments because I have a buzzing about romance. Oh. I have a zippy bag and some other goodies and a handmade page book spreader. Yeah, my husband made these for us. So I have one of these to go to someone who is still sticking around and watching with us.
That's 6. Well,
so what is next for you, Vanessa? What's next?
So Manhunt came out yesterday. Book 2 of that series, Man Candy, comes out March 7th. I have just started writing it, so I can't give much details on it. It is, but it comes out March 7th. We all mentioned that there was a series with Helen Hart. It is a 3-book series, and the third and final book in that series, which is called Broken, comes out January 17th. So they kind of overlap each other. If you haven't started the series with Helen, you should definitely not read book 3. You should start at book 1, which is Scarred, which came out, I'm going to say in the fall because I'm blanking on which month it was. So technically,
October.
On a Manhunt series is the latest, but finishing up with Helen.
Yes, start with Scarred. I think it came out like October, and the next one came out early December. They're excellent. Excellent. They're very emotional and steamy, and I am enjoying them quite a bit. Leah's waiting to read those because she can't handle a cliffhanger, so she has to binge read all 3 at the same time.
Just a little longer.
So I've got 5 because Leah can't win. Vanessa, pick a number between 1 and 5.
4.
4. Jennifer, you are our winner. You can email me, becky@bookcaseandcoffee.com, and I will get this out to you. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining us this evening and chatting about Manhunt and not running scared from all of our crazy fangirling.
I love it. I'm so glad you enjoyed the book. It came out yesterday, so I'm thrilled to know that it was well received.
Oh, for sure. And I have been talking about it in our Discord chat and telling everybody, you guys have to add this to your TBR. It is amazing. So I hope lots of people will go over there and hit one click and purchase that book.
I agree.
Thank you.
Totally.
Thank you.
And the paperback is beautiful.
It's
Mine
adorable.
is not here yet. It's on the way, but
I don't have it either. I haven't gotten my copies yet. I ordered them back at the beginning of December and they are still a no-show.
Yeah. It's gorgeous. I love.
Very pretty.
This is going to.
Good. I'm so glad.
I'm going to end up owning this whole series. By the way, my husband counted all my books today. When I started working in publishing in 2019, I didn't own one paperback. I did everything digitally and only owned ebooks because we had moved and I just got rid of my paperbacks. So I started working in publishing in 2019, and today he and my girl child counted all the books that I own.
How many?
Only 544. In 3 years, that's not terrible.
Not terrible.
A lot of them came from the library sale because I collect the old clinch covers and stuff. So I don't feel like it's terrible. Anyway, but I'm going to buy these paperbacks because they're gorgeous and I love them. Again, thank you so much, Vanessa Vale. Everybody, you can find Manhunt wherever you buy your books. And we will let you all know when Man Candy is out so that you can also pick that one up. Thank you once again. Until next time, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
And happy reading, everybody.